England have beaten Argentina 22-17, Coley. A try at the death. Unbelievable. Back-to-back weekends. If you're joining us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. You'll never miss a video. And leave a comment below and we'll try and answer as many as we can in future episodes. Is that as good a series win as England have had for a long time, Coley?
Yes, it is, Ben. I think going over to Argentina, we've seen how good the Argentinians have been in the Rugby Championship. They've beaten all the teams in the previous calendar year. In the Championship, they beat the Lions. Yes, they've rotated their team a bit, I think, because they are looking at the Championship and Argentinian players play a hell of a lot of rugby, especially if they're based in Europe. But in terms of England going over there, you're missing, I think it's now 15 players to the Lions after Jamie George got called up. And for England to go into Argentina's backyard twice. And so the first week you kind of go, maybe they caught Argentina off guard. Tactically brilliant, George Ford brilliant, caught Argentina off guard. But then this week, the Argentinians knew what was coming and it was an arm wrestle, but England came through at the death. But they never looked like losing. England looked in control a lot of the time. You watch a lot of the game with Fordy's tactical masterclass of a kicking plan and obviously the coach's kicking plan, but Fordy's execution of it. Just the ability, Argentina, they're so dangerous, say counter-attack and ball in hand, but England made them play from their own goal line or in their own 22, and the Argentinians couldn't get out of their half. You watch that second half, they get out a couple of times, but like the majority of that half is Argentina trying to get out his half, and then they sort of Argentina kick the ball, box kick it, too long, England catch it, either pass, run it back, put it back on them to the side of the field. Argentina play a couple of phases, try and get out. They can't. England catch it, put them back in. Like 40 just rolling balls in behind. Even when England have momentum, they sort of roll the balls in behind, put them in the corners, make them exit. And right at the death, you kind of thought, because even like, I think on the commentary, they're like, oh, England kicked it away. They don't want to win. It's like, no, they're just waiting for a moment. They're waiting for an error. And then, they got them right at the death, 78th minute, whatever it was. I think Pepper strips the ball in contact. And away they go. And fair play, that took some finishing that try, or that work, that try down that short side. But credit to England. I think it's an important victory because it's a young England team, and for them to go to Argentina and have to back up. Because you win one game, and sometimes you take your foot off the gas. I know I'm talking a lot here. Take your foot off the gas and kind of go, we've won one game. It's, this game's a free hit out. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Oh, they're beating us. Oh, that's a shame. Whereas actually to go back to back, away from home, test match intensity, Argentina come out firing. And for England to see that off, ride that and see it off, it's a big step forward for, I think, a lot of young players in that England team to know what it's a test match rugby is about, having to go back to back, and you hope it continues. Well, it will continue into the autumn.
Another great result from England, and they backed it up, Coley. And there's loads of little bits we can talk about, but please with me, it sets it up brilliantly for the autumn. Like, they've generally got some momentum. When I start thinking about the last two performances in the Six Nations, albeit, yes, it was Italy and Wales, but they really started to play some rugby and look sort of like that they were building towards something. And I've seen that again in the Argentina. We spoke about last week, the influence of Lee Blackett, Byron McGuigan coming in, and those guys have definitely added in terms of the coaching staff and what they have done. But for me, Coley, even watching the second half, very much like you said, England were so dominant in territory. They had all the possession, all the territory battles, And even if Argentina had the possession wasn't where they wanted it. It was all in their half, and they're having to go a few phases. But then you open up the risk of being jackled by an awesome back row display by Curry, Underhill, and Willis. And Guy Pepper when he came on as well. I just thought you remove 40 from that team, and okay, England might win, but I'm not sure they do. He was that pivotal once again. He was that influential in terms of just showing some young, maybe inexperienced guys, that's how you win a test match, or that's how you give yourself best chance. You don't mess around doing phases in your half. You're so decisive of what you do backfield stuff. It's like the ball is either long or gone, or it's contestable, or you just pick off that one chaser. So sometimes Argentina would kick it. They'd send one guy chasing after it, clear tactic, trying to pressure George Ford to almost cut away his kick meters. He would then just pick him off with a nice little pass, or him and Freddie Stewart would swap. Freddie would then link up with George. Then they'd steal another 10 metres, up the contestable goes, and try and create that. And, we'll just touch on the try at the death to win it is, as you said, Coley, you're in that horrible position where you're drawing and you know that you'll get a chance. So therefore you've got to get territory first. So England do that. They manage to win it. It then gets a bit loose at the breakdown, comes out. I think Apoko Fajul picks it up, little hands to left-hand side. Curry then ducks under does almost like a sort of spin, sort of trips over sort of thing. And whilst he's on his knee, sort of pops it offload to Guy Pepper, who's hitting a great line. And I think, again, just really smart rugby from Guy Pepper here. Like, some people would hit that line and accelerate straight away, Coley, and go absolute hell for leather, obviously trying to score it. But by doing so, almost isolate himself. And what he does, he almost like cruises, like, well, he's still running quick enough, but sort of cruises around sort of two defenders. And he almost waits for the time, knowing that Jack's on the inside. Then he accelerates. He rides the tackle from the 15 brilliantly, and just an offload over the top, sort of basketball style, and JVP runs in the corner and try. But so deserved of their win. I just thought the better team, their scrum looked really dominant. Their maul, when it got it going, was very dominant. I think it's safe to say, no one's fault, but when you lose Jamie George just before kickoff, the line out struggled a little bit. But that for me, that's totally normal. Like, you've just lost your starting hooker, one of the best throwers in the world. You're also against Gonzalez, who is, and Coley, you can vouch this a lot more than me, but arguably one of the best back row forward line out operators there is. They just throw them up at the front, very difficult. But I thought in general, England's whole game plan structure and what they put out there was very, very impressive. I was so pleased to them, like you said, Coley, that this win this weekend was almost more important than last weekend. I know it sounds ridiculous, but because the fact they backed it up, because the fact they went there again and they won, and knowing that Argentina would be better, but so were England. And actually, the scoreline, they were probably more deserving of the scoreline like they were last week, this weekend, because I felt like they dominated so much.
Oh, yeah. Also, you talk about like how it all fit together. The scrum was dominant. I mean, Hazy, Baxter, Theodan. Yeah, unfortunately, the Argentinian title, I think it was his last game. He's 40 years old. He's a great guy, but he got Finn Baxter had him under some pressure, and but that allows you to, when you have that dominance, especially on your own ball, you can kick those contestable balls. You can get your Roebucks in the air, Freddie Stew's in the air, Will Muir's in the air, and if it's a knock on, we'll take it, or if Argentina knock it on, we'll take it, because we're almost guaranteed a penalty or we're guaranteed front football from the scrum. So, and then that feeds into the whole territory kick battle sort of thought process. And and I thought England say, the more Argentina defended a lot better this week than did previously, and made it tough for England. But I say England just, even when someone went against them, they just found composure, put it back on the Argentinians, make a runner from their own goal line, make them play from that end of the field. And I thought England were outstanding. I say, again, I think G Ford marshalled it. Do England win that game without him? We don't know. We'll never know. But he marshals that backfield incredibly well. And the back row went to work. And I think, the front five went to work. And it was, I think, is a complete game in terms of England sticking to the game plan. Because that's also the thing, is you get to those, you draw in at sort of 17 all with 10 to 15 minutes to go, and it's kind of like, does someone try and offload? Does someone try and throw something out the back? Does someone try and do something? I think there was one occasion where England sort of threw long and it got intercepted, and you thought, no. But it all was, England just stuck to the game plan. They were calm, controlled, and they finally got the reward with a turnover and played. And I think, that's the blueprint. The coach obviously set the blueprint how to play, and the players went executed, and that's credit to them. And they weren't rattled by being in Argentina or when Argentina scored and the pressure and that kind of stuff. So no, it's a great step forward for a young team. And say losing Jamie George, yes, it'll affect your line out, but again, when you say Gonzalez, I've seen him literally be thrown up at the front of the line out, and he's 6'5", probably, with really long arms, and they literally catch him on his shins. They catch him beneath his knees, which gives you an extra foot of height, and he's just an incredible freakish line out forward. So like the line out, you can probably, if you get 100% Argentina with him in the team, you're a bit like, fair play, but it doesn't happen very often, put it that way.
Yeah, that was my thinking as well. I've got to say a couple of things. So any youngster out there, watch George Ford's ability to distribute and get the ball to the wide channels. Like, he takes nothing out of it. And what I mean that, the catch, pass, delivery, and he just gives so many more people space on the edge and time and opportunity. Incredible. Just watch it. Watch his game management. Soon as the phases are, you go and phase count, but, some people kick when they're on the back foot. They wait for it to almost go stagnant. Okay, now I'll kick territory away. George, again, waits for its front foot. It might be speed ball, and then boom, he's going to an aerial contest, Roebuck's wing and things like that. Just his tactical nous was outstanding. One thing about this Argentina tour, it always unearths a few lads, and I think Seb Atkinson at 12, really excited about the prospect of him. I think he's found his feet very quickly in that England team. It'll be really interesting to see how he now progresses. I think he's a great Gloucester, a part of Gloucester's team and that sort of young talent that's come through at Gloucester. So credit to them. But I thought he's been really, really impressive, and I'm intrigued to see how he goes during the autumn. And there's sort of one other thing I want to mention is when you look at England and the way they've performed the last 2 weeks, Colin, what they've managed to do is marry up many aspects that maybe they haven't been able to do previously. So, I've at times given them some heat during either the autumn or the beginning part of the Six Nations. But what they've been able to do, or what I've seen as a step up, is when they've actually had the ball this time around. So they've played the territory game, which we know England will do, and they've executed that fantastically well. They've then backed up with a really strong set piece at scrum, with getting the dominance there, with the line out maul and things like that. But what I love most is when they have had phase attack, when they have had opportunities to launch, they've just looked really threatening. They've looked comfortable holding the ball. They've looked comfortable manipulating defenders and moving the ball to space. They've looked like there's general shape and patterns and flow to their attack. And that for me, that's the biggest. I've just really enjoyed seeing them. They've been pragmatically brilliant in terms of getting out of their half, pragmatically brilliant in terms of not going multi-phase, giving Argentina nothing to hit. But when they have had the ball, they've looked really, really good in terms of they're threatening. They've got numbers at the line. The ball's moving. They've got options. They're willing to go phases and just playing really smart. And I think it's almost sort of 18 months build up with under Steve, sort of trying to get new youngsters in there, get new players in there, and formulate this game plan. But you really saw that, I believe, in this tour in particular, that sort of the game model that Steve Borthwick liked. And I, as I say, from my point of view, being sort of attack hat on, that for me was really, really impressive. So credit goes to obviously George Ford, Benny Spencer, Seb Atkinson, because those guys will be sort of running it from a player's point of view, JVP, and then Lee Blackett coming in there as well. And the guys having the ability to execute it. So yeah, there's my 10 pence worth. Just a little summary on the general England theme and the way they played.
I agree with England in terms of their, they look to shift in counter-attack. They always play at the right times, and I think do you think that's for the viewer listener, you talk about phase play and stuff like that, how does that fit into the game plan? You know what I mean? In terms of, say, why don't they play? If they're good in the 22, why don't they play further out?
Yeah, well, I think that comes back to the risk reward, doesn't it, of test match rugby? Like, you overplay like Argentina did at times, and then England get a turnover and they kick three, or they're then kicking to the corner and they're mauling you and they're putting you under pressure. So that balance has to be so strong. Equally, the forward pack, you can't phase them out. And what I mean by that is if you're in your half and you're going 3, 4, 5 phases every time you're sort of from your 22 to halfway line in your half, you're sort of going phases for not a lot of reward, and then you're taking the run away from your forwards. So therefore, when you do get an opportunity to scrum, when you do get an opportunity to maul in their half, you can't give what you got, because it's about saving energy and being so efficient out of your end that you give the opposition just nothing cheap. Like no cheap jackals that then they're kicking the corner, because it might take you 5 minutes to get out of your half. If they're kicking to the corner, they're mauling, then they're picking and go, and you give away another infringement, and they're doing a tap play, and then you give another infringement, then your yellow card, and it leads to a try. And it's just the way the game's shaped and momentum. So, yeah, it was very purposeful in terms of getting out of the half, Coley.
I think it also feeds into like the defensive system. England play quite an aggressive press, and if you're aggressively pressing, then if you run in there, you've got a dominant set piece, then like you don't really want your forwards running 75 phases. Some teams will play 75 phases, but in defence they might be a bit more passive and a bit more save energy, or the set piece ain't as good. Whereas like I think people fall into the trap of a team, they've got to be good at everything, and you can't be good at everything because players aren't good at everything. You have to pick what you're good at and what you're sort of weak at and balance it out and try and find the strength and your strength, put a strength on a strength. Say England's D in their set piece, and then you feed where can we attack? Where can we get maximal gains for our attack? If we're going to spend half hour a week, where can we do it? And that's probably 22 attacks. So let's working, that gives us the most returns in regards to the likelihood of scoring us from our own goal line is low. The likelihood of scoring the opposition 22 is quite high. Let's maximise our returns there. And that's, I think, what people don't see is the game plan that coaches put together. It has to, everything, the kicking game, the set piece, the defence, the attack, the transitions, in and out of the kicking game, like it all feeds into one big plan. It's not just best of everything. It's sort of where can you put your money and where can you focus hardest. And England, I think, proved that they're getting the balance right.
Coley, we did touch on it briefly, but great for Theo Dan to get a test start and get in that sort of dealing with Argentina away from home, given you've got Luke Cowan-Dickie and now, of course, Jamie George, who had to pull out of the game last minute because he's on a flight to join up with the Lions in Brisbane. And like England's miss was the Lions' gain as such. What will Jamie bring in terms of turning up for the Lions?
Enthusiasm. He's a great guy in the group. Again, another great tourist, which Faz has brought out. He's going to have a job to do, but he'll instantly add to the group. His experience, obviously been on 2 tours already. He knows what the Lions is about. He's not going to have to take any bedding in. One thing with Jamie is like he probably knows the calls because they do it pre-training, pre-Lions, but because he's so good at the line out and scrum and his gameplay, he'll just pick it up like that. It'll take a couple of sessions, he'll know the calls and he'll be able to throw it all, whereas some hookers might take a bit longer, but Jamie's so experienced in that regard and so good that he'll pick it up straight away and fit in seamlessly. And I think he'll probably, the focus for him will be that midweek game because of probably the test team is sort of set, but they're going to need a hooker for training this week, especially because Dickie will be missing a few days because he'll be in concussion protocol, HIA protocol. But so you're going to have 2 hookers on the field. So those guys are going to have to get through a lot of work in the training week. So if you can bring in another one, it will save their legs. It means that the starting hooker will be on one side. The bench hooker can rotate into that side, in and out of that side to get reps. And Jamie can sort of run as the second team hooker, put it that way, the non-test team hooker, and can just allow those guys to focus on the test. And that's what, being a Lion is about.
Jamie is one of the best people you'll meet. So we saw his leadership in the first game against Argentina and all that experience. This is his 3rd tour, of course, for Lions as well. Like, incredible bloke. He will bring energy. He'll settle in straight away. He'll add value. He'll add experience. But he also has a lot of relationships already with, he'd have toured with some of those guys. He'd have known one of those because he's a very personal bloke. So even if he's never toured with them, there's a good chance that Jamie would have chatted them at some point. He's just a really genuinely top bloke. And he'll slot straight in, Coley, and bring all that experience. And how good that he gets to go on his 3rd tour and be a part of it. He's another guy that actually, when you looked at there was certain positions where it was so tight between who could be going, and he was another one, wasn't he? When you look at the hookers, no one was like he could go on this, and he unfortunately didn't. But now, obviously, with Luke and his concussion, you need him out there. So Jamie will settle straight in, and it's a great opportunity for him to go out there with more experience. Lions tour. There he goes, 3rd. Well done, Jinxie.
Let's talk about England's other co-captain, as we've got a question from Jack Wright. Has George Ford put his name in the hat to be England's starter at fly half in the autumn internationals, despite not being a Lion?
I think he absolutely has. I really do. England have got a luxury of fly halves at the moment. And, when you look, you've got Finn Smith, you've got Marcus Smith, you've got George Ford. No one's really sure what Owen's going to do. Like, no one knows if he's going to do the international stuff or not. But the way that George Ford has played in this test series has been phenomenal. And again, Coley, and you can vouch for this, it's about picking the right people to execute the game plan for you. And, some people are better suited for certain things. Some people are better suited for, finishing the game. Some people are better for setting up the game, for however way you look at it. But for me, the way that if George carries on the form that he's been in throughout this year, because I think he's had a brilliant year, yet another brilliant year. It's very hard for me to sit here and say that he shouldn't, because I do. I think that England are a better team with him pulling the strings and orchestrating that style of game plan. Now, there may be other games that they play where they need to play a certain different way, and maybe other people are best posed to do that. But it's hard for me to see and know how England want to play, and having played under Steve and knowing his sort of philosophy, it's very hard for me to sit here and not tell you that there isn't a better fit than George Ford. Like, George Ford is the perfect fit for that.
I've got 3 answers to this question. One, the autumn's going to be interesting because, you probably still have to win games, but develop talent, and you might go, England have gone slightly younger recently. So there is that question. I'm not saying George Ford's definitely put his hat in the ring. That is the answer. But secondly, there's Lions coming back, but some of those guys are young, and potentially there shouldn't be a knock on anyone, but those Lions may go out a bit of form, because sometimes coming in out of form, you don't know what the autumn is. Sometimes you've had such a long season with the Lions, you've had such an incredible high, your pre-season's short, and you're sort of thrown in straight away in the autumn. Sometimes you don't really play in the Premiership too much at the beginning part of the season. and you're thrown straight in, and everyone expects you to be brilliant, and actually the pressure of I'm a Lion, and it gets to some blokes, and they can have a dip in form, and that's all right. That happens, but the expectation's so high on them that these guys have never. Some of them might not have had that expectation before, so there might be a drop in form, and George Ford might be incredibly consistent. The third thing I'd unpack with that bit of question is the England team will be different in the autumn. George Ford's been awesome in a young, experienced England team. Is that leadership? Whereas you sort of bring back in maybe Mitchell, who's now a Lion, you bring Tommy Freeman, who's Lion, you bring in Ollie Lawrence to be back, probably fit, hopefully, for the autumn. You got Furbank, who might be fit again, who's captain of Northampton experience. So actually, then you've got more experience around that fly half position. So then you can go maybe and keep developing a Finn Smith or a Marcus Smith and keep pushing them forward, who might be your flyers the next 10 years. So it'd be incredibly interesting. George Ford has been fantastic, but again, there's so much to unpack in regards to the whole wider picture of you got to win a World Cup, and you want to win a World Cup in 2 years. What's the best way of doing that?
Do you think, Coley, that at some stage, given the fact that you've got this luxury of fly halves, given George's vast experience, that almost counts against him at times, that that it's like, well, I've got to bring through these other guys because I want them to be able to execute a game plan and put on a masterclass like you did in Argentina. But to do that, they need to learn. But then also at some point, do you have to back a horse? Do you almost have to go, I've got to back that one? Because for me, as a halfback, at some point, you have to be given the keys to the castle. And Mitch is obviously the 9. Benny Spencer's played very well. You got JVP, you got Harry Randall, you got Rafi Quirk. There's a crop of 9s, but Mitch is the front runner. And he's been given sort of you can tell he's been backed to go do that. And as a fly half, at some stage, you have to be backed as you're the first choice. You're the guy to go do the job, because then it almost becomes your team. Like Marcus had the keys to the castle in the autumn. Six Nations, it then went to Finn Smith. Now Fordy's had an outstanding summer, and now we're kind of debating about who will have it in the autumn. But in my opinion, at some point, someone has to have it. I think George couldn't have done any more in terms of all that, executing the game plan and playing the perfect England model. He carries on like that. It's very hard to ignore him.
Does his experience count against him? It counts for and against him. It counts against him because he doesn't need games to play. Like we saw in the Six Nations,
Yeah.
He was in camp all week, didn't play a minute, then comes on against Wales and puts people through holes willy-nilly, and they score. And against Wales, I get it. But, he hadn't seen a game, comes off 20 minutes and tears it up. So there's not many fly-halves can probably do that. Not many players in the world can do that. Similar with the autumn. He hasn't had, been an England team, always played that 20 minutes, but like before that, didn't play loads in the Six Nations, that kind of stuff. But you bring him in that game, like there's not many of the fly-halves in the world can just have that poise and confidence, and not just him, but get people around him better and bring them forward, because he's got his own game. But, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. Like, yes, his experience counts against him, but it counts for him because he's trusted to do that. And, potentially you see a situation where the next 2 years, yes, you grow Finn, you grow Marcus, and you let them battle out for the fly half spot. But then if you sort of Fordy's such a good person that you don't want to isolate him, but he kind of does that role. And you get to World Cup, you pick your best player. You know what I mean? And Fordy will be really good. Those two hopefully will be really good. And you pick your best player to win games. And you say about backing it, but Fordy doesn't need. Yes, he'd love it probably, but for the next 2 years, I don't think you need George Ford in 2 years' time. As long as he's playing consistently, in the Premiership and in Zeta around that kind of stuff, you could start your games in the World Cup when you back him, wouldn't you? Out of all of them, if there was no rugby for 2 years and you go pick one bloke to play fly off in the World Cup, out of those three, it's G Ford. And that's what I'm kind of like. So England have got a luxury, and it's going to be interesting how they do it. It's going to be fascinating how they do it. I'd really look forward to actually seeing how it's done, and I'm sure everyone will have their opinion, but whatever the thought process is, it'll be what's best for the team. And it's great for England to have 3 blokes fighting it out, all with different attributes, all with different skills. And, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be so interesting to see how they do. And also it works who's around them in the team, who's fit, who's not. Like some players, you play better in those combinations. Sometimes you play better with certain centres, and that's what I've said, and around that kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting, and as the team develops, as the centres develop around them, like, does that offer a different thing for fly-offs? So it'll be fascinating to see. It's one of the things I'm looking forward to with this England team in the next couple of years, how it evolves and who does what.
There's worse places to be because they've got some serious depth there at 9 and 10. And also, which is really starting to heat up the competition, of course, is the open side, Coley. We've got a question from Jackie. Does the England 7 shirt have the most depth of any position for any nation? Sam Underhill, Guy Pepper, Tom Curry, Henry Pollock, Ben Earl, Ben Curry, tearing up. And then you've obviously got Ted Hill, Tom Pearson, Emeka Ione. Like they're like almost like the next sort of lot behind.
It's in the back row. Like, okay, Willis has put his hand up at 8. He's been phenomenal. But say Ben Earl can play 8, Curry can play 8, Pearson can play 8. Like, yeah, there's a lot of depth, and that's again great. And what it allows you to do is, yeah, some people will go down the route of probably, oh, you need a set back row and this, that, and the other. But actually, you got young guys coming through that add. Everyone's got different qualities, and that allows England to pick. If one thing you notice about England, I think, they pick a team and a game plan often because they can't just roll into town like South Africa and just wipe everyone out the floor. Because I don't think South Africa's team players are probably individually better. I'm not being controversial. I think that's similar with France. So I think you have to England have to be adaptable. We've seen it in the Six Nations. Sometimes they muddy the game up. Other times when they're a favourite, they sort of expand the game. And I think having those back row options allows you to pick a back row for the game plan and the opposition you're going to play. And same, the core of England, how they play runs through the team. But, if you want to play an expansive game, you've got like your Pollocks of this world and Guy Pepper we've seen. If you want to have a nitty gritty run into me, we'll bash it. You've got Currys and Underhills. You've got Willises. If you see the England team selection, if you look at the back row, you probably find out how England are going to play the game. You know what I mean? So that, again, it's interesting. I think they're brilliant prospects. And again, unfortunately, someone's going to have to miss out and not play. But I think the competition, that thing, is only going to get people better, which is great for England.
Yeah, I think you're going to be a situation where, Coley, like you need to get as many of them involved. So, okay, you're right. You pick 2. If you're going to defensively bash teams, then you're going to go with an Underhill, one of the Currys. If you're going to be expansive, you go with Pollock. If you know the game's going to get loose back into the game, and that's how you're trying to shape it up and almost run riot back 20, well, then you're going to load up the bench with Pollock and Ben Earl. So it's a lovely luxury that England have got to think that. It was only not so long ago, Coley, sort of midway through our careers, where England sort of, with the depth at the sort of the back row wasn't really there, was it? And now you look at it, it's incredible. So, yeah, I mean, the one thing when you look at all those names is they will all compete. And through competing against each other, you're always going to get the best version of them. So, and it's a lovely luxury to have. Some teams, when they lose certain positions, there just isn't someone to fill in. England can literally just slot someone in. It's very similar to... the Ringrose Hugh Jones thing at the moment. They're both in amazing form. Now, it sounds like Ringrose has got concussion and can't fit. No issues, because Hugh Jones is playing great as well. It's like that luxury of just, one goes in, no issues. Either could play. We've got a question from Sadie. How difficult will it be for England's Lions to slot back into 23 in the autumn?
Some of them will be fine, as in regards to some guys will just keep rolling. Other guys, Lions traditionally, because it's such, this season, we're still going, is so long, and the Lions is the pinnacle, and it's so hard, and you go from that. We found it. I mean, we beat Australia in Australia in that third test, and 4 weeks later, we are playing Jersey away in a pre-season game. Like, it was, like, semi-ridiculous. I remember putting my boots on. I think I started, it was just because the new scrum rules came or something like that, and it was just like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I've got absolutely no interest. I've gone from, like, 80,000 people to now warming up in a pre-season game. Like, it was mad. It wasn't mad. We did it. We got through it. But there's going to be an emotional drop, I think, after Lions for some players. And say you have a elongated pre-season, you might have to get managed. There'll be knocks, bruise, all that kind of stuff. So it would be one thing I say to people, listeners, viewers, is let the players, like, if they're not involved or they're out of form, don't be shocked. That's part of the natural process of sort of the Lions and afterwards and these young guys, and it's a pinnacle. So, like, if they are out a bit of form, that's all right. They're quality players, they'll get it back. But almost expect a dip, and if they don't have a dip, that's awesome. And I might be wrong. Everyone might just seamlessly roll off the Lions store and be awesome in the autumn, but we don't know. The good thing is England have just played 2 tests without their Lions and have been brilliant. So for England point of view, yes, it's going to be tough getting the boys back in and everything like that, but it's great for England and great for them. And hopefully you've got so many guys now, you've got a whole player base that is now pushing forward. But it's not for, I think the listeners and viewers, it's probably the expectation of the Lions is just not expecting to be in the autumn the best players in the world, because there's an emotional dip after the Lions, and some of them will manage it really well, some of them won't, but eventually it'll be all right.
It is a bit of a Lions curse, isn't it, Cole? We've seen it a lot, and the players talk about it like it is. You either dip in form or you often get injured, because just accumulation of cognitive load, all that, the come down of that, and then the next season starts so quickly and everything that goes with it. So as you say, Coley, it's not as if all those players away are going to slot straight in. Some may lose a bit of form and you say it's absolutely fine. Some may have injuries, But what we're seeing is a real depth to England. And I'm really, really happy about that. And it's great to see.
Ben, we're doing a disservice to the game. We've been talking for half an hour about England, but I think, in terms of world rugby, Wales have won a game. Japan 22, Wales 31. The streak is over, and Wales won. Yeah. What now for Wales?
Well, hopefully
now that's finished. What now? Like,
the world's their oyster. I hope that. I hope they had an amazing celebration after that, because for waiting to win for 18 games is a long old wait. So I should think that ice cold beer never tasted so good. One with victory, and two, given how hot Japan is. But good win for Wales. I think that it was, they would have been targeting a win out in Japan. Last week they ran out of steam. This week they found a way of getting the job done. And I think it's important for them. They needed that. Had they gone the summer tour as well, that's a long old wait again for the autumn, mate. And good to end the streak for them. I was very, very pleased to see that. And, the question is, can they build on this? Well, they don't know who their coach is necessarily coming in yet. There's still sort of rumours. I don't think anything's actually in place yet. Let's just say, I think the important thing is they've ended the streak, and that sort of can be put to bed now. And, when they start to reshape the coaching group and everything like that, they can hopefully get themselves in a situation where they can start building momentum 2 years out from a World Cup. And, they've got 2 years to kind of find their way.
In some regards, it's probably better to have lost the first game, won the second, than it would have been to win the first and lose the second. You know what I mean?
New Zealand comfortably beating France 43-17. There wasn't a huge amount to report there, given the fact that, France pushed them last week, but France got a very indifferent team.
And one thing we'll say, New Zealand, they seem to be better after a game, don't they? We saw it in the Rugby Championship with Argentina and that kind of stuff. They almost sometimes the first game of the series, they're not great. They do enough, or sometimes don't, but then the second game they come out firing. So yeah, it's just interesting. That's a trend with New Zealand in some regards.
Then this result was actually a bit sad to see, not because Ireland won, but just the actual margin of which they won. It was 106-7. Ireland beat Portugal, and I know that Ireland took a very indifferent team, and trying to give guys exposure. Paul O'Connor, of course, taking the reins over Andy Farrell there for that tour, but that's a shame for Portugal to get so well beaten. Given what we saw from the World Cup in Portugal, they sort of fast became everyone's sort of second favourite team, and how well they did there. But yeah, that's a real rout, and it's not really no one's getting anything out of that game, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah, it's a shame for Portuguese rugby as well, because they were brilliant at the World Cup. I think since then they've sort of semi-struggled a bit with qualification and that kind of stuff, if I'm right. So it was potential one of those games that had potential to help the nation, but probably hasn't.
Moving on, South Africa 45, Italy 0. Now, Coley, let's talk about a few things that South Africa did for those that didn't see it. Not kicking the ball 10 straight away to create a scrum on the halfway line. Very French-esque. In what game was it?
It was like Toulon Beglay's back, I think, in the 90s or something like that. You find it on YouTube. Might be in the 80s even. But I think they go to Toulon and Beglay's kick the ball off, and then basically Toulon are Beglay's kick off, but they're literally packs just waiting on the halfway line. They know what's coming, so they just kick it straight out and have the scrum.
Crazy.
That'd have been better if it would have been better if this African team, instead of having two short runners, just the entire 8-man pack just behind the centre spot, already bound up, ready for the scrum, and just go, look at this. The Italians would go, all right, mate, guess what's happening here? And then I'd have loved that even more.
Yeah, rather than a sort of shape up like kickoff, actually almost semi-form the scrum behind the 10 as he did it. But yeah, Rassie once again sort of looking at alternative ways to utilise that scrum, alternative ways within the game and the laws to try and create that scrum contest. They also did another play where they lifted up multi-phase and then did a line-out lift in the centre of the field. So they're going multi-phase, 9 played to lock, lifted a line-out, lands, create a maul and started mauling. They're clearly looking at different alternative ways of shaping up the game, Cole, and doing things, which actually from an opposition, you're trying to preview them, you never quite know, but they're certainly looking at ways of utilising their game, and actually even from that maul they end up scoring. Moody scored a cracker. So Springboks flexing their muscles once again, showing their depth. That screams to me, if that's what they're doing now, that they're going to do a year of almost experiments, different combinations, different ways of playing, try and look at alternative sort of bits and bobs, which is from a viewing point of view, that excites me really. Let's see what else they come up with.
Well, it's interesting because they could just basically roll into the test match against Italy, cream them, and then, they don't actually learn anything. Whereas actually, if they bring a bit of innovation and push the boundaries a bit in these kind of things, see what they can get away with, I think it's great. There is one more result from this weekend. Fiji, 29, Scotland, 14. Massive result for Fiji. Potentially costs Scotland a favourable draw in the World Cup. So it could be expensive for Scotland. But I think it's great for rugby. Scotland went to Fiji to play in... but part of me thinks maybe this would be better for Fijian rugby had they played the Lions at some point on tour. Ben, what do you think?
Coley, you know my views on this. So Fiji, of course, pushed Australia the week before very, very close. They've now gone and beaten Scotland. Great that Scotland... I mean, what a trip that is, going to Fiji. How good. But I looked at the AU-NZ sort of invitational team against the Lions, and these are my thoughts. They're only my thoughts. The Lions are on tour to Australia. They're playing against the Aussies. It's a chance for the Aussies to utilise playing the Lions. Now, Melbourne Rebels, of course, folded, so they're going to play an invitational team again a week on Tuesday. But this weekend, they played against the AU-NZ team, invitational team. Tell me, if the Lions were touring New Zealand, do you think New Zealand do an invitational team with us combined Australians? No, they utilise having the Lions in New Zealand and getting all their New Zealand players experience and exposure playing against the Lions. Like if they went SAFCA, do you think SAFCA would go, oh, can I do a SAFCA A team, emerging box team, or, New Zealand obviously do the New Zealand Māori game. Like, why Australia didn't play an Australian A team is like beyond me. Like, why wouldn't you want like all your youngsters that played, or all the teams that aren't involved in Joe Schmidt's squad, from the Force, from the Tars, from the Brumbies? Okay, some of them might have to back it up. Well, that's what the Lions are doing. They're backing it up. So maybe you don't have the Brumbies. But then, of course, you've got the Reds. And why would you not utilise an Australian A game, or try and further the development of all your young Australians, and instead of getting like half a New Zealand team together? It doesn't make sense to me. And then on the back of that, it made me think, why, if you're going to play against Argentina before you fly, like why not play Fiji? What a great fixture that would be. And there's a reason why. There's a couple of great reasons. One, it's great for Fiji and it's great for the Lions to play against each other. Two, I'd say it'd been a lot tougher game. The Lions were terrific. I'm not taking anything away from them, but it would have been a tougher game. Three, okay, we're in a bit of an entertainment sport. I'm telling you now, I'll tune in on a Saturday morning watching Fiji play. Like, I'll watch Fiji against anyone, because you know that they're going to play and offload and everything like that. And just for the benefit of the game, and I hate the word like, oh, we've got to grow the game, we've got to benefit the game, we've got to help every nation. Like, it just makes sense to me that they'd have been better off playing Fiji than, let's say, another invitational team, because it looked like the invitational team, and they said they've been taking it seriously and everything like that, but I mean, it looked like that fixture was put together sort of 2 weeks ago. I
agree, Ben. It was a missed opportunity, I think. If Australia didn't have enough players to put together a side or something like that, it was a great opportunity for Fiji or Samoa or Tonga or one of those teams to step up and play. And I think it would have been great because in history, no one's going to look back at that Lions game and probably remember that invitational team, that game. Whereas if Lions had played Fiji, it would have been, it possibly had to be a test game. I don't know. That might be one reason they want to do it, but I think it would have been a lot better for the history of Fiji, Lions, and just rugby in general. I totally agree with you.
Well, what you could have done, Coley, is move the Brumbies to the Saturday game, which we've just had. They could have played them on Saturday, and they could have played Fiji on the Wednesday. But in my opinion, I just think it's a massive missed opportunity. I think it's a massive missed opportunity from Australian rugby, like to not have an A team, to not try and utilise. You're 2 years from a World Cup, like to have to almost need help from your neighbours to come. It does for me. I look at that and I just think that's bonkers. That is bonkers. And I'd love to see Fiji play the Lions, and I'm sure the Lions would have loved an opportunity to play against Fiji. And you could have played obviously in Australian soil. They would, Fiji would have come over. Given the fact they're in Australia anyway, the week before, playing against the Aussies, it would have made perfect sense to me. But there we go. I'm taking nothing away from the Lions. They were professionally brilliant. We spoke about that. If you haven't seen that episode, please check it out. But I just looked at that and thought, yeah, opportunity missed from Australia. Like, I don't know what the organisers are thinking there. And two, how good would it have been to play Fiji? If you played Argentina in Dublin, why can't they play Fiji out in Australia? Given they knew the Rebels have folded, given that to be fair, this fixture was to be TBC'd for about ages, wasn't it? For a while. Yeah, it seems bonkers to me, mate. It seems bonkers to me. That's a missed opportunity.
Anyway, that brings to a close this episode. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you just listen on audio, feel free to go in the episode description, leave us a comment of some sort. We're back on Thursday with our usual podcast, and building into the test.
See you then.
For the love of rugby.
If you want to drop us a line, get involved with our socials.
Just search for @LoveOfRugby. And if you've listened to all our episodes and need another podcast, go and find Joe Marler's Things People Do.
See you next time.